You can either take the red pill, you'll wake up, everything was a dream, or you can take the black pill, you can get torched.
Well, I suppose getting torched won't hurt that much. I don't feel anything.
Wait for it.
Oh, wait. I just got a new client. Get torched! Get torched! Get torched!
I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, we're back for another episode of The Truth Hurts. The footy season might be over, but we're still going, Duck. A nice bit of product placement you've actually got going there. Just do it on the tee.
You know what? I haven't had the any branding.
Still get royalties, do you, for wearing that every episode?
I wish. It's WC, not MJ. It's very different weekend.
You'd be back on the circuit, wouldn't you? You'd be out amongst.
The sun's out. Footy season's up. No, you know what? I had a very quiet weekend, but which might surprise some. Went to the Werribee Zoo.
Oh yes,
never been.
Yeah,
have you ever been to the
I have. Yeah, it's not a bad joint.
Well, it's a little bit different than going to a bar or the Espy or something like that. Different set of creatures at the Werribee Zoo. This has always fascinated me about the Werribee Zoo. You want me to tell you? Now,
I'm not on the list yet.
It was my first time there, and obviously the highlight.
You enjoyed it more than the kids, did you?
Highlight of the zoo. Well, yeah, they were blueing. It's a tough day, but it was a nice. It wasn't too hot, wasn't cold, but you go to the zoo to see a couple of animals. Let's be honest. We're not there to see the deer. We're not there to you're there to see the lions.
Yep.
The wild dogs, the cheetahs, the leopards if they've got them, the elephants, all of the big, even the zebras are nice and giraffes are nice, but you're there to see the things that can kill you.
Yep.
True?
Yes. Yep.
Right? So the lions were fantastic because they were actually out. So the big male was the first time apparently the big male, the king of the jungle, was actually there with his cubs, was let out with the cubs. So they only looked about 6 months old.
So this Werribee, for those who don't know, is an open range.
Open range is
so you're out amongst it on the buses out there.
Yeah, well, yes, you can see the lions on the butt, but this was where you walk up and just look over the top. So they weren't that far away, literally 25 metres away, and the big male sitting there, like I said, female not far. He had 2 females and the cubs. And you could stand there and watch them for a good hour. I could anyway. Kids were off playing on a truck that's there for just looks, and it's all rusted out, and they're playing on that, and the lion's sitting there, and you go, what are we here for? To play on a rusty old truck, or to look at the lion? So
did you see a bit of yourself in that lion when you see him with his cubs and his multiple? It's a low blow. Sorry. We can edit that out if you want.
No, and he's very quick too.
I've thrown you. Sorry about that. I don't know why I said that.
No, you know what? It was an amazing experience. This is what fascinates me. When I was on the run and living up on the Gold Coast, I went to the sanctuary up there, and they had polar bears
on the Goldie.
On the Goldie. Now
that doesn't seem right.
Well, and then yesterday in Werribee. So think about, the sun's coming out now, but think about the whole year round.
Yeah.
Those lions would be freezing their bums off. They're not used to really cold weather, are they? So, and then you've got up on the Gold Coast where it's warm all the time, you've got polar bears. So why aren't the polar bears in Melbourne and the lions up on the Gold Coast? That's what I can't. And it's always fascinated me why we don't have the polar bears here.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It makes a bit more sense.
It's a whole other conversation
around build a whole thing. But anyway, the wild dogs were disappointing. I just want the Werribee Zoo to know because there was only one, and it just stuck its head up. Bigger than you think, the wild dog.
Yep.
They're taller and
bit mangy.
Bigger head. People think they look like a hyena, but they're very different to a hyena.
Okay.
A bit of a Wayne Attenborough. No, so the wild dogs were disappointing. Didn't get to see, and the cheetah. The cheetah sat far too far away and just stuck its head up as well.
Yeah, I saw the cheetah. Yeah.
So I wasn't overly And then the bus tour, I saw more rabbits than I saw any other animals, which, let's be honest, there's rabbits everywhere. And they had burrows everywhere. Did you see them?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so I'm not at the Werribee Zoo to see rabbits.
It does sound like you had a better time, though, than we went there. So we went there about a month ago, my partner Katie and I, and our daughter Ayla, she's about 10 months old. So it was maybe a bit young. Maybe a bit too soon, but she cried.
Flat out recognising you. Oh,
she cried the whole way.
Actually, I actually saw you there. I saw a big silverback. They were good too. Sorry, there was 3 big silverback.
Yeah.
They were. They say. Did you know that a chimpanzee? Now I'm sure I'll get told if I'm wrong here, but apparently a chimpanzee is 7 times stronger than an average man. So that's 7 times stronger than you. Now, not me because I'm more than average, right?
Yes, yeah.
So probably, 2 times stronger than me.
I can see when you're about to deliver a gag because your face starts smiling before you even say it.
So probably chimpanzees say 2 times stronger than me and 7 times stronger than you, right?
Yeah.
Then so what would a silverback gorilla be?
They're massive.
They're an impressive beast.
Yeah.
Who would win that? Who would win out of a gorilla and a lion?
I'd back the gorilla, wouldn't you? I don't know. Who are you?
Look, I don't want to see people or animals fight, but it would be interesting.
Maybe they'd be smart enough to stay out of each other's way.
That would be huge, though, wouldn't it?
It would be.
So anyway, I had a great time there. Walked around.
Some really wholesome content from you.
Sat on the bus.
Great to hear.
Well, very different to
every other weekend.
Other years.
It was just so nice to wake up and not feel terrible. So after a solid social month, it's nice to have a weekend off as well. But it's hard because now that it's getting warmer, it's much easier to just get 5 o'clock rolls around and have a little quiet beverage, isn't it?
When the sun's out and the birds are chirping, it's very easy to just settle in somewhere. The other thing that I caught up with Dennis Pagan.
Oh.
Corey McKernan flew down from Queensland. I had to catch up with him for a little bit, and then he took
just
off.
To catch up, no reason? Or
no, well, yes and no. So Dennis wanted me to do a little favour for him, for a friend of his, just some North memorabilia, but Dennis has done me a lot of favours over the last year. He came on the True Thirds, which was awesome. But the reason why I bring it up is because I said to Dennis, I'll come to your house. And then I realised I had Charlotte and Carter with me. And they were both just tipping over the edge. So I picked them up. It was at 4:30 in the afternoon. So they've been at school all day, tired, hungry.
Getting a bit ratty.
Ratty as. And I thought, do I go? And then I thought about tooting the horn out the front because I knew what was going to occur. I thought, no. So I went up, rang the bell, went in, and they're just all like jumping over the couch, running around the house. And the one person you want your kids, the fear that we have of Dennis Pagan and how well behaved we were, not behind closed doors, but certainly in his eyes, and just doted on and petrified of. These kids walked in his front door and just ran all around the house, jumping on the couch. Oh, can we go in here? And he's going, yeah, of course you can. Kids, have a look around. So they took that literally and started running.
You're worrying about what they're going to break or what they're.
Oh, it was. I've never been more like I was seriously sitting there embarrassed, and I got in the car and I go, surely you kids could have at least behaved in there. Do you realise who that was? And the car goes, yeah, you don't. They took just great joy out of embarrassing me in front of the great man. So. Yeah. That'll never happen again.
How was Dennis?
He was good. He was up and about. He's cracking a few gags and
Got any horses? You got any new horses?
Didn't chat long enough to find out what new horses.
Well, you just signed the jumper for him and then got out of there.
Yeah, but I had to. The kid, something was about to be broken, and Dennis pulled out a photo of him and I, with the Premiership Cup. It wasn't on display. It was in a cupboard. And he pulled it out, and the kids, because we look a fair bit different now, But
Yes.
at least the kids recognised who we were. Oh, that's you, Dad. No, yeah, that's your coach. And that's about as quiet as they were. So I'm glad that got out of there with nothing broken.
Good stuff. Well, it is that time of year. It is that time of year
That was horrendous.
where we can enjoy a few more social events now that the football has wound up. I noticed Stephen May. He certainly enjoyed himself at the Melbourne Best and Fairest.
Why do you say?
Well, he admitted himself he wasn't expecting to be on stage for an award, so he had maybe
He went a bit hard.
He maybe had a few
He's
more.
a good fellas, Maisie. I like Maisie.
You've run into him a few times.
No, well, yeah, I've met him. Met him a few times, but
Just from what you hear.
Yeah, he's he's had a few run-ins with some teammates. We know all of that, but that can happen. That can, sometimes you don't see eye to eye, but in general, the people that I speak to, they say he's a good fella. What I did love about what he did on the weekend, though, I loved his honesty.
Well, we're going to play that audio first, and then we're going to get your response.
And I don't want to, talk about it in hindsight, but we lose to Collingwood and they go on to win the flag, and it fucking hurts watching that because like we're a better team than them. We should have smoked them, and to sit there on grand final day and watch them, hoist the cup and get the medals, I'm sitting there going, geez, our team's so much better than these guys, and we should have been out there, but we weren't. And I think, we got an unbelievable list. We got an unbelievable coaching group, and the hunger is, never been, hungrier. And,
So there was Stephen May. He didn't hold back.
Well, I love that. I love that. And I'm happy to say that occurs a lot, and a lot of players think it. I'm prepared to say that we were the best side in 1998. And we lost to the Adelaide Crows. Now, I know the Crows, they're the grand final, they're the premiers, okay, but we were a better side than the Adelaide Crows. Quite simple. They beat us on that day. Now, what Stephen May was saying is that he thinks that they were a better side than they didn't get there. A lot of people say that Essendon were the best side in 99. They never got to the grand final, did they?
No, they certainly didn't.
Yeah, but a lot of people think they're the best team.
Yep.
So why can't Stephen May have that opinion of his own team? I thought it was refreshing. He didn't seem overly fresh, but it was great.
So the Collingwood.
Why do we want all these players to be stiffs and not say what they really think?
The Collingwood fans have cut up rough because they believe that Stephen May is they've gone out in straight sets and he's looking down on Collingwood winning the flag. That's why they're getting upset. But
I think Stephen might have been giving a little bit of a barb to his own team, maybe.
Yeah. So those end of year functions,
better
often you do speak about the future, don't you? And what should have happened, what we're going to do. I'm sure when you broke up, as you say, at the end of 98, you would have had some honest conversations, or maybe not in public, but at least amongst yourselves.
The night we lost the grand final in 98, I promised everyone at the function that we went to that we would win in 99.
Oh, you did.
It happened to come true, but you do say things when you're emotional, and sometimes they come true and sometimes they don't. But
you'd rather he cares, though, at least than
Well, let's be honest. They beat Collingwood during the year. They only just won that game. I think it was 3 points. They should have won by a lot more from memory.
Yep.
Then they lost a close game when
they had a heavy inside 50s
in the final, right?
Yeah.
So they lost that another close. So for me, and a lot of people say, probably on stats and all of that, if you believe all that, they probably should have won, given all of the chances that they gave themselves. So he's entitled to have that opinion. Collingwood will be forever known as premiers, and Melbourne will be forever known as going out straight sets that year. But I don't necessarily disagree with what Stephen May said. I don't sit there and think that Collingwood's a better team than what Melbourne are. Collingwood are the premiers.
So just before we leave Melbourne as a topic, I picked up on something that Josh Jenkins said during the week, I think on SEN, about Melbourne's forward line, because that was the big talking point about the D's maybe not getting the scores from their inside 50s. He said he thought that Jacob van Rooyen was not a number one forward. What have you seen in as a fellow forward watching Jacob van Rooyen and his development at Melbourne?
Probably haven't seen enough to make a full assumption on him.
So 28 goals in what was his first season of footy. He's early 20s.
It's not a bad result.
No, it's not.
You know, and once again, for me, it wasn't just their it was their synergy. It was the way they moved the ball forward. Their decision making going forward was really poor in a lot of their games, and that's why invariably they didn't get there.
Well, still on the Ds, and Clayton Oliver's been a huge talking point to start the trade period.
Oh
and
boy, they've given us some fodder.
They have, haven't they? So these scenarios are fascinating because we've got trade radio, Hutchie's baby now, which is hugely popular with the fans, and they need content.
How many listeners do you reckon they've got?
Well, okay, well they say they're hugely popular. From my understanding,
how many people really tune into the trades?
From my understanding, it is their biggest time of the year in terms of
really,
AFL.com as well in terms of articles and people engaging with their stories. There is a view among some of the faithful that the Clayton Oliver story is like a media beat up, for instance. So the story was that there were some off-field concerns. Melbourne were maybe willing to have a conversation with a team, or that teams were exploring whether they could get Clayton in a trade because he was perhaps a bit disgruntled with how the club had dealt with him. I'm interested in your view on this and the whole way it played out. Do you think Melbourne's played a part in this in terms of maybe sending Clayton a message, or is it a legitimate story in your?
The cynic in me says yes.
Yeah.
I think that has happened a lot over the years. I think there has been a lot of things leaked from footy clubs to certain people in the media to write up, to pull a player into line or put them on notice. No question at all. Have some coaches done it? Yes. Do I think Simon Goodwin would do that? Probably not. But has someone else at the footy club? Maybe. I think it's worked out. Their silence for a few days was deafening.
Yeah.
And very well played, I think. If what you hear and what you've read, once again, believe very little of that, but what you hear is somewhere around the truth, or there's an element of truth to it, then I think they've played it really, really nicely. And if Clayton Oliver, what I do get confused by with everyone saying, "Oh, Clayton Oliver, needs to straighten up," and all, mate, the bloke's won 4 B&Fs. He had an injury season this year. He's still their best player when he's fit. So the concerns that they have around his training and behaviour and all that, it's obviously sort of blown up into something a little bit more this year, given the frustration that he's had.
So they would have tried some things internally to get him into line, because the public response and maybe leaking something, we're not saying that 100% have done that, but the way it's played out, it would have to get to a certain level before they would. That's a last resort, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I'm not concerned about Clayton Oliver getting himself mentally right, given that he's done it before. And the game's littered with players that, that have needed apparently a little bit of guidance and have come through. And
what about the way he treats people at the footy club, for instance? Because
that's something that I've read, but I don't necessarily believe it. I haven't heard anyone at the Melbourne Footy Club say.
Let's take it
most important.
So you think in terms of the way your club functions, because you come into contact with a whole lot of support staff day to day, from the tea ladies to your physios or whoever. Yeah. So you're saying that is really important.
Oh, it is really important. I mean, all your strong clubs just have, it is like a family, and it doesn't matter whether you're the boot stutter, whether you're the tea lady, the CEO, the president. You treat everyone the same, and you acknowledge everyone, and you come in, and those people. A lot of people at footy clubs are volunteers, and and they give you their time, and all that they want from you when you walk in is they want a smile and a hello, and maybe a conversation. Sit down and ask them how their week's gone, or might have a son that's just had a child, so they've become a grandparent. There's all these different things, and you ask about those things, and it makes their whole day. It makes their year, and then they just love seeing you play good footy. So those people are ultra important.
How long did it take you to realise that? Because I'd imagine when you come onto the scene as someone, a young star, and you're the man about town and all those sorts of things, I'd imagine that can get to certain players' heads. Don't know if it happened with you, but when did you realise about the importance of those conversations at a footy club? Was it later in your career?
Being a Wagga Wagga boy, I was always, I guess, a people's person in that.
Yeah. So no one ever pulled you up and said, Wayne,
No, not when it came to relationships at the footy club. Yep. I got along well with everyone. Always acknowledged anyone. I thought Dennis Pagan, when he got to the footy club, he took it to a whole new level. In the way, he would acknowledge everyone, and even supporters. He would go out before training, go out and chat with supporters. I don't know how many coaches do that today. So he really did set the standard. But everyone, we had a group that was quite humble when it came off the ground. We had a lot of country boys. Yep. That had no problem with, we would go around and have dinner. I went around and had dinner with a family, and Michelle's still with us, and parents have passed away now, and great people. But, she would always take on a group of us. She did my washing and ironing for
So what was she to the footy
many
club?
years.
What was she?
At that stage, she was a supporter.
Yep.
Come to training all the time. Like I said, beautiful family. We'd go around there once a week and eat dinner. The dinner was like a roast every Monday night, and it was just, I'd choose that. It changed actually over the years, but the amount of stuff that, those people do, and still then after I believe then, when I say adopted, then took on, someone else that they did it for. And there's so many of those families that do things like that for people, and for players at footy clubs, and they're loved and they're cherished. Judy Francis was well known. Cooked and Jeannie, they did so much. Cooked soups, albeit you find a Band-Aid in the soup every now and then. It's probably not ideal. And Judy won't mind me saying that, God love her. Wasn't the best soup. And, I mean, they're the sort of people where you walk in after training and the big pot of soup's there, and I'd walk in, and this is a relationship that you'd have with her. I'd say, what's the soup today? And if it was, vegetable and whatever, I'd say, so is that out of a can or have you cooked that? She goes, oh, you're a smart aleck. By the way, she didn't say smart aleck. She said something else. Yep. Oh, you're a smart aleck, Kerry. She said, I cooked it. I said, okay, I'll give that one a miss. Let me know when you get it out of a can. So that type of banter.
Yep. They are what awesome. Make footy clubs go around, and even at local level as well. So many volunteers. So, Clayton.
So back to Clayton. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they've now, I think the lesson's there. They'll now wrap their arms around him. I reckon put some money on Clayton Oliver for the Brownlow medal next year. There you go.
Oh, interesting. I'll go
and another best and fairest at
I'll go and have a look at what he's at money-wise. Now, there was a big social media reaction to this story from fans and media commentators alike. I'm just going to bring up a few tweets for you to respond to. One from one of your favourites, Daniel Gorringe. Hope Clayton is okay. Got dragged through the mud all week by the media over a story that never had any substance to it. Now, I don't know if substance was a play on words because he tries to be a little bit risque, but Stephen Quartermain responded to Daniel Gorringe, stick to your lane, old mate. You have no clue about this story. So Quarters has gone whack on Daniel Gorringe. I wonder if you had any thoughts on that interaction at all.
On that interaction, I love the interaction, but I'm not sure. I really like Quarters, and obviously we had a bit of fun with Daniel earlier in the year.
Have you seen him around town recently?
I have run into him a couple of times. Yeah. I think he might be dodging me.
What, have you had a conversation or?
No, I don't know whether he's seen me, but I've seen him.
Yeah. And what you reckon then he's gone in another direction?
I don't necessarily think he's gone in another direction, but he hasn't wanted to engage, which I would know.
Are you suggesting he's scared of?
You idiot! No, but just on that bit of banter between the two. I think Daniel's allowed to have an opinion on whether the media were quite harsh on Clayton Oliver. I mean, there's other players out there that have done a hell of a lot worse than apparently what Clayton's done wrong and hasn't had the media coverage. So I don't disagree with that. Quarters having his say, stay in your lane. I think you're allowed to have an opinion. So I'd probably agree with Daniel. I'm not sure he's out of his lane by having an opinion about someone being bashed up in the media. I think that's there for everyone to see.
There was substance to the story, though, wasn't there? Because Melbourne ended up putting out a statement suggesting...
Correct. There was substance.
But maybe...
Some. Yeah. Maybe not as much substance as...
Grant Thomas.
Good word.
Grant Thomas. Moving on. Duck, moving on.
I'm not sure how many...
Moving on. We're moving on. Grant Thomas. Now, Grant, we often bring up on this show because he's a left field thinker and
I like Grant.
And he's prepared to say...
He was one of my first coaches.
Did you know that?
No, he was an assistant coach under Wayne Schimmelbusch.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Before he went on. Well, that sort of kick-started him in the AFL world.
There you go.
Mm.
Yeah, okay.
So I do know Grant very well and do like some of his views and his opinions, very strong in them.
Well, he's prepared to say things that other people aren't. So this is Grant's tweet. Interesting how we unfortunately hear about Clayton Oliver's off-field trials and tribulations. Now part of his rehab program is to move into Captain Gawn's house. I can only assume the coach had been living at Gawn's house as well. ? Fish rots at the head. Pretty difficult putting unconditional social demands on players when your ultimate leaders pick and choose, with a couple of emojis in there as well. So he's fired a few shots at Simon Goodwin there. So
don't throw... The saying is don't throw rocks if you live in a glass house. Don't throw bricks if you live in a glass house. Grant's been at a footy club. He's had issues at the footy club that he's been in charge of. So
what are you referring to there?
Well, there's been a lot. Every footy club has issues. They've had issues with people higher than him at his footy club. There's been issues with players that he's coached, all sorts of stuff. And you wrap your arms around them. You don't sit back and he should probably know better than anyone that what's reported isn't anywhere near true, especially when it comes to the coach, Simon Goodwin. So I would have thought that he should know better when it comes to throwing those sorts of barbs at Goody.
So just on that, the situation with Clayton moving into Max Gawn's house. So he's got a young child, maybe even another one on the way, and they've obviously thought that this is good for Clayton's life and one of the things was he needs some more sleep, supposedly. Do you think if someone was needing some more sleep, they'd move him in with you? They'd move him into your house back then?
Thanks for that. No, the simple answer is.
Did you ever live with any teammates back in the day?
I was very, early days.
Yeah. Who were your housemates back in the day?
Johnny Longmire, Stephen Hamilton. I lived with Mark. Mark Rampercash lived with us.
The cricketer?
The cricketer. Played for England. What about when he moved in with Bomber and I? We're living in Strathmore and we're playing front yard cricket and we taped up the ball and anyway, we're bowling to him and we're, getting him out regularly. And we're sort of going, oh boy, this bloke, he's playing for North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we thought, this bloke's no good. And then next thing you know, he's back and he's playing for England. Bomber and I are sitting there looking at one another going, we used to get him out all the time. He didn't like living with us though.
Why? You're too much for him?
Well, yeah, we were during the pre-season, you train and then weekends, you've got off and
because that's when he's playing cricket, and so he doesn't want
correct.
You blokes are
correct.
Out
and Will coming in and he wasn't happy. I think he might have told a few people that he lived with myself. This is so then obviously my career's gone where it's gone and he's all of a sudden playing for England and somehow someone asked him a question about living with myself and I think he said it was a bit of a nightmare. He was a bit of a geek.
Oh, yep.
He was pretty...
Bit of a stiff.
Yeah, he was pretty... he didn't do much. Pack his own lunch, Vegemite. Well, it wouldn't have been Vegemite, but whatever. Pack his lunch and do that. Pack his cordial.
How does that even happen that you guys are living together? I don't know.
Because he's playing for North Melbourne in the cricket, so they thought put him in the clubhouse with two footballers. Not a good.
That's not
not a good mix.
No.
He did go on and represent England.
It's a trade period at the moment, as we've said with Clayton's scenario, and there has been a whole lot of trade requests. Some of them a little unexpected. Taylor Adams is one. Someone who you would have said, absolutely bled black and white over the past few years since his move from GWS. Has been a heart and soul player for Collingwood. He's had a couple of injuries at the wrong time of the year in recent times. Again, whether you believe all of what you read, but some of the conversation around his trade request to Sydney has been he was shifted away from his inside mid role to half forward when Tom Mitchell came in. He wants that inside mid role at Sydney, who have offered him 3 years. He's only got 1 year remaining at Collingwood, so he gets some extra security there as well. And then there was some conversation around whether he thought Collingwood pressed him too hard in grand final week early in the week. He wanted to test, on the Friday or the Thursday. He was tested on, early in the week with his hamstring and consequently missed the game. And obviously he's missed out on a flag as well, and you wonder how that plays into it. How do you see that scenario? Do you think it's the right thing for Taylor? Can you understand it? And how do you
the footy world has gone a little bit crazy in some ways. There's things that are going on where the tail is wagging the dog, where the players actually have control. And then on the flip side now, like the clubs, you are indispensable no matter who you are. And no matter
dispensable.
Dispensable.
Yep.
No matter, not indispensable. You are dispensable these days.
Yep.
And he's one. You look at Treloar. He got shipped off. We obviously know what's happened with Grundy, and then the rumours around Clayton Oliver this week. It is a different world.
So you've got to look after yourself, is what you're saying then.
Absolutely, you do. And if it is a 3-year deal and a guarantee that you're going to get more of a go where he wants to play, and obviously at the SCG too would suit him down to the ground.
Yeah.
Given his style of play, I think great career move.
So the missing out on the grand final one, I find an interesting one because we've spoken about it from a medal point of view. Do you think it'd be hard to go into work every day, seeing your teammates knowing they've won a grand final when you know that if you were fit, you would have been part of it?
It can tear you apart. Well, we've had this conversation before. Not missing out or losing one stays with you forever, and that might be just the fresh start that he needs, is to get away from this joint that. It's given him a lot, but at the same time, just a complete new start and some extra years on the contract, as you said, stability.
What I always love at this time of year is seeing fans overrate their players in terms of what they're worth. This is not denigrating Taylor Adams at all. I think he's a really solid footballer, but I find it interesting as a 30-year-old who's had some injury issues, who had been maybe on the fringe at Collingwood towards the end of the year. And when I say on the fringe, he wasn't in the role that he wanted to be. And, Pies fans are saying, it's an early sec, it's pick 23 or it's this and that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out now, because Collingwood have already said, well, he's contracted, and Sydney have to get in Brodie Grundy from Melbourne as well. So what's Taylor Adams is to me, as someone he's given great service. Does that plays into it a little bit for Collingwood?
It has to play, yeah.
So Collingwood would say, well, maybe it's a late 30s or it's a 40 or something.
You would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so. And I think we do see that a lot, don't we? Where a player is given great service and they think that they can, have a longer career at a different club. They should bend over. And Mackay's a little bit different for North Melbourne, by the way, because I don't think he's really given them a lot.
Yep.
He's been there,
yeah,
and he's played some inconsistent footy. He's played some great footy, but that's a very different circumstance to a Taylor Adams.
You can never doubt Taylor Adams' application, could you? I guess that's it. It'll be interesting to see, what happens with. You assume clubs always talk tough early in the trade period. You assume he gets there. You wonder what Collingwood are going to do now with. I think he would have been reasonably well remunerated. What they might do with that cap space, whether that gives them any options to get another name in.
Well, there's so many, there's so many names being thrown. We've got a Coleman medalist at Carlton in the other Mackay, who some people, were saying when Oliver was talked about, will Oliver go to Carlton and then, Mackay straight to Melbourne, that fix their forward woes. It really is the crazy season, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you think about Clayton's got 7 years left? Aaron Norton then comes out and signs an 8-year extension, was it? What do you think about deals that are that long?
Well, it's all determined. It's it's made up by the managers. So the managers go into the clubs and say, well, we've got an offer. You know, for instance, North Melbourne are prepared to give Aaron, 8 years or 10 years, like the Buddy deal. You've got to at least, give us 7 years or we're going. So that's what I mean by the tail can wag the dog sometimes. But the problem is if there's an injury to that player and you've guaranteed that sort of money, so therefore can't go to another club, and you get stuck with that for the next 7 years, it is a big risk to take. But it is all determined on supply and demand. And a guy like Norton, who's a key position player, the demand would be high and he'll deserves what he gets, but at the same time, the Bulldogs, it's a big risk.
Going overseas, we lost to India in the World Cup last night. Did you know the World Cup cricket was on?
Been very quiet, hasn't it?
I used to get up every night for the World Cup back in the day. I would not have known. I barely knew this was on. You just wonder if 50 over cricket is just about dead.
Well, we haven't had the fanfare around it like we have in other years. The fact that it's in India, you would think it would be hugely spoken about. The home of cricket, and I've hardly read anything, hardly seen anything. Don't see any advertising around it. I'm in bed, by the way, when it's on.
I think it starts about 7:30. Starts about 7:30.
Back in the day, I was probably just getting home so you could watch it.
Just while we're still on cricket, I know it might not interest you that much, but I watched the back end of this yesterday. Jake Fraser McGurk, he's a Victorian kid. He's early 20s, I think.
I know who he is.
He was playing. I think they call him the Rooster. He's a bit of a lad. He's a bit of a character.
Well, with a nickname like Rooster.
Don't quote me on that. It might be something different, but anyway, it's something like that. He was playing for South Australia against Tassie. He got 125 off 38 balls. That is motoring. Yeah, that is really sad.
Reminds me of a knock I had, kill or force.
What was it? What was your knock?
Kill or force. Yeah, 100 and something off 30 balls.
You got a century before
off 30 odd balls. Yeah.
How old were you at the time?
I was 26, 27.
Oh, so you're hitting young kids around the park, were you?
Yeah. Well, a couple of 13, 14-year-olds and a 90-year-old. That's what fourths is. It's made up of really young kids, a bit like your seconds team
and
that you
a few
play
old
for.
Blokes. No, standards are much.
You're
the standards.
You'd be the youngest bloke in your seconds team.
No, they're all very young in that seconds team.
Anyway, even though you've still got to hit the runs.
No, you do. I do laugh. I remember.
I did win the average that year for kill or force. 76 or something.
I always think about where Lloydie was just preparing for the Sunday footy show, and they just had the cameras rolling. He said, "No, just hit Stewie Lowe's son over." Just went hit him over 5
legs. About 8.
I think Lloydie was a bit annoyed that came out initially. Now he has a laugh about it.
Oh, it's very funny.
Some big names in town recently. Scotty Pippen was one for the AFL and NRL grand final. He was there as an NBL ambassador. Watched a bit of NBL. Actually, Jack Jumpers won couple on the trot.
Who are they?
They're from Tassie.
I know they are.
I got told that there were no Michael Jordan questions for Scotty. So he's being paid to appear and promote the sport, but he's not allowed to be asked about the most famous basketballer and teammate of his.
That's his decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that surprising? I mean, I understand why, because he was upset with the way he was portrayed in The Last Dance. That maybe didn't get enough credit.
I didn't think that he was portrayed that poorly. He made a couple of blunders. He obviously signed a contract that he shouldn't have signed, and then it invariably ended up not being enough for him because he was a superstar. He's a bit of a, bit of a sook, I guess. He came across.
If that's the way he's been portrayed, then
he came across as a bit of a sook on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, so he was not happy with that because he was like, well, without me, MJ doesn't have his title. So that was his.
Well, then that's true. Yeah. But, I don't know why he wouldn't want to talk about him. I guess if the whole conversation revolves around someone that, and taking away that he was a superstar, he probably wants a little bit of focus on him.
He's got a great voice, Scotty Pippen. Got one of the great voices, I reckon. Real deep, sort of. Maybe I'd come.
Yeah, it can be too deep.
Did you wanted to talk about
Voice is what I'm saying, not his voice. I'm saying some.
Yes,
It can be a little bit too deep.
You are right up with your pop culture at the moment. You've been watching Becks lately.
I have been watching the David Beckham documentary. It is very, very good. I'm not a massive soccer fan, and that's probably well known. Love Kevin Muscat when he played at
hard, tough as nails.
Yeah, he should have been an Aussie rules player, Kevin Muscat. So I love soccer during that time. Obviously, I've watched World Cups and different things and was fascinated around the Women's World Cup this year with Sam Kerr and what was going on with her injury, and then got caught up in all of that. But not hugely, not a huge watcher. Love the highlights. So know a little bit about David Beckham, but this documentary is, I think better than Jordan's.
What?
I think
better than The Last Dance?
Well, I like it more, and it's a soccer.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
No, because in Michael Jordan's, like, obviously, Michael Jordan's arguably, well, in my opinion, not that I would know, but the greatest basketballer of all time. Subjective, But you could see when Jordan was talking, it was, you're talking about himself and how sort of good he was and everything else, which is all fine because he was. But I saw a real humbleness in David Beckham and, a guy that what he went through, after he got fouled out of that World Cup.
Yeah, so red card in 98 against Argentina and then copped some horrible abuse.
But just his whole story I just find fascinating. I love the way he speaks about his story.
Yep. I did like in there when
I love that he looks vulnerable. He looks really vulnerable. You can see that he's right on the verge a lot of times on, sort of breaking down.
Yep.
And by the way, Victoria.
Well, that's where I was going to go. So you saw the little bit.
I actually think she's like, I never realised she's very attractive.
Well, you've only just realised this now?
No.
She's part of the Spice Girls.
No, I knew that, but I've never really thought, and maybe it's because I didn't sort of know, but I think she's got something about her.
The story that Ken kept bringing up was when they were asking, she was trying to talk about her working class roots, and she said, I came from a working class family, and here's Bex pops his head round from the bedroom. You can only see the corner of his head. He says, Victoria, what car did you get driven to school in? What car did your dad drive to school in? She says, oh, no. What car was it? She said, oh, no, it's complicated. No, what car? A Rolls Royce. Don't think she was.
That's not working class.
Don't think she was working class.
No, anyone that's thinking about watching a documentary, whether you like soccer or not, it is just brilliant. And I think Victoria comes across as, a great support, really, a great mum, speaks really well. They're my new favourite.
Just 20 years late.
Yeah, I know. They're past it now. No, but they just seem like just a ripping couple. Been through everything, to have the scrutiny that they've, gone through in every aspect of their life. And, he's, I had no idea on how big he was either, and like how big he was worldwide and wherever he went in the end. And I guess the adulation and then the scrutiny and, people, the death threats and all sorts of stuff that he went through during that time. It's a really, really, really good watch.
Absolutely. And I've only seen part of it so far, but I've followed David Beckham's story as a Manchester United fan. So I definitely...
Yeah, but you're one of those blokes. I'd pick you a mile away.
Oh, well, this would be good.
I can pick you a mile away.
What, like a real... What?
So you'd be a Man United fan. You'd be a Chicago Bull fan.
No, I'm not.
No, you're one of those wankers that just goes for the best team at that time in the world.
What I will say about supporting Manchester United...
No, is that true? Is that true?
Just let me speak. I do feel a little bit of guilt about supporting Manchester United. What I will say is it came from the Eric Cantona days, so he was just before their period.
Well, Beckham played with Eric.
It was just before their period of absolute sustained success. That's but I know where you're going with that. Yes.
There's a lot of people.
I don't go for Chicago, so
A lot of people have done it. Don't worry. When you were about 5 years ago, you were a Richmond supporter.
yeah.
Then yeah.
My football team hasn't won a final in bloody 20 years, so I don't know if I can be accused
Hang
of
on. When did you? Here we go. When did you start barracking for the Bombers?
that. So I started going for Essendon at the start of '96, and then
So right when they were playing prelim finals and finals, so you just jumped on their bandwagon as well.
James Surd was the reason I started going. When you're that young, you gravitate towards, and there was North Melbourne were going okay, but I didn't like the look of this Carey bloke, so I thought I'd go for Essendon. I've got lots of listener and viewer questions to get through, Duck, so we've got to get to these. This is from Nathan Smith. Good stuff, fellas. Keep it up. Don't let duck out of the room or duck the hard questions, so to speak. Well, I feel like we're doing that okay. You ever feel under the pump in here?
No, not at all.
Okay. Duck. No. Duck, any player strip stories? We'll do that a little bit. We're going to do that a little bit.
We thought we might do a segment on that.
Yeah.
A whole show on that.
So that was from Brandon. So yeah, we'll answer that a little bit later because you do. Yes, the answer is
couple that we can go with on the truth hurts.
The free agency compensation we've spoken about in terms of whether that's deserving. Did we speak about that earlier, did we, or not?
Not really.
No. So this is from Sammy Duck. I keep hearing about the band of compensation or this band or that band with Essendon and Mackay, or Essendon doing a deal with the Saints on Gresham. Sounds dodgy. Surely that's not what the system is about. And I find that interesting even just this morning. Tom Doedee, for instance. So he went to Brisbane as a free agent. Adelaide are going to get an end of first round selection for Tom Doedee.
So the first round.
So that is dictated by the length of contract and the amount of money that's being paid. So clubs do this. Now they're schooling the system a little bit to get the other team a better pick. And so then it help, if you help me, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Do you think there should be compensation for free agents? Like because could North Melbourne likely get pick 3? Is that right?
Well, I think the idea of free agency is that you don't get that they have a choice if they want to leave, and it's up to the club that they've been at to convince them to stay. Yeah,
yeah.
Isn't that the idea of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, probably not. But when do you stop it? Because there's already been so many clubs that have been given compensation. So do you put a line in the sand now and say, okay, in 4 years' time, then the rule is changing.
So for bottom team losers, for instance, North Melbourne loses a Ben Mackay type player in 5 years, you're happy for that club to get nothing in return?
Is free agency 5 years now?
No.
It's 7 years.
No. I'm saying in 5 years. If you're saying that's the time we cut it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you should be able to in that time convince that player. Why is that player? The player leaves at that time because of a reason.
Yep.
I think more often than not, it's probably money, and then it's I guess opportunity might be another one as well. In a different position or something like that.
Yep. This is from user with a whole lot of letters and numbers. You should change your name so we can read your name out. Duck, any fringe players at Collingwood who North Melbourne should target who are out of contract or who are still contracted with late draft picks who can bring depth and a big club culture and possibly play every week for the Kangaroos? That's a question without notice. I maybe should have given you a bit more time with that one.
No one off the top that I can think of.
So they're all pretty established, Collingwood, and they're young guys. They're probably not going to want to get rid of, are they? Just on you brought up Bucks v Pendles last week. So this is from Pricey.
How did we get any feedback on that?
Yeah, so this is from Pricey. Imagine if Bucks captained or played on Pies teams as good as this. Bucks was the better player, but Pendles is a close second. So Pricey's saying that Bucks' teams were not as good as this team. Is that a fair or?
I haven't really looked at it, but no, we're not comparing teams, are we?
So
we're comparing their individual careers.
Part of the discussion around Pendles was the fact that he'd been a part of 2 premiership sides now, and whether that elevated him above Bucks because he's...
Well, Bucks made the decision to play for Collingwood and thought that they had a better list than Brisbane and North Melbourne. So that's on Bucks as well.
So you were into Bucks?
Bucks had done a deal with North Melbourne, had, in theory, done a deal, and just hadn't signed on the dotted line, and right at the end chose Collingwood. So he left Brisbane. So was this
mid-90s or when was this late?
Was going to join North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then chose Collingwood and said he thought they had a better future. So he left Brisbane.
So he missed out on your flags.
And Brisbane's, and never won one.
How would they have fitted you and Bucks under the cap? That would have been.
Well, yeah, it's probably worked out. No, he would have been if we'd got. But imagine if North Melbourne had got Bucks at that time, we would have been unbeatable. And by the way, Brisbane were a combined team with Fitzroy.
Yes, so I can understand why Brisbane were not the most attractive proposition at that time when he was.
Well, Bucks was already there before that happened.
Yes, I understand why he wanted to leave Brisbane. Is what I mean. This is from Willie Wanker. I hope Pendlebury breaks the game's record, which gives me the opportunity to bring up Boomer Harvey, who was let go by North in disgraceful fashion when he was fit and ready to go on the next season and break the game's record. Makes me glad. I just cancelled my North membership. What did you think about Boomer's that decision-making around Boomer at the time?
What, should have he gone again?
Yeah. I feel like you thought at the time that maybe it was the right time for him to move on. Was that?
Yeah, well, it's about opportunity and who you've got coming through and in terms of positioning as well. So if Boomer's taking up a spot that, you want to get some game time into, we've seen it. The game's been littered with, those tough decisions over the last few years. Was it right? Did he have another year? The one thing I will say is Boomer would have been fit enough. His body was certainly sound.
Yeah.
It's just whether they thought someone was being starved because of it.
Now, there was maybe a push for a more defensive side to a forwards game, and would that be?
Yeah, well, that's the other point of it, and they're the things that when you're not, inside the four walls, that we're not aware of.
Yep. So the grand final moments, and it feels like almost an eternity ago now, but this is from Mal. Darcy Moore didn't throw his medal down. This was before the medal presentations. It was his headband and mouthguard. Thanks, because we had a chat about that.
Right.
So thanks for that clarification. This is from Matt Murphy. I listened the other day when the King declared Brisbane, and I thought, geez, I hope he's wrong. And if he's wrong, I'll give him shit in the next podcast. Lol. So, Matt, I've passed it on to...
I said it a lot. Collingwood supporters should be thanking me.
Walk with swagger. Love so many parts of that game, but side bottom kicking that goal from outside 50 was my favourite because I wasn't sure he could make it. And I felt the same way with it. That was a huge kick.
A beautiful kick. And Crisp was the same. I mean, those kicks, Degoe, we know, has got the distance, but I thought, their big moments, and we said this last week, their big moments were bigger.
Al, anyone who's ever played footy should know better and know a medal handed out to a non-playing player of the grand final would mean nothing to them and have no sentimental value whatsoever.
Well, I disagree, because I think there are players at clubs that it would mean something to. Not all of them, but there would be some that would say, you know what, I do treasure this, and they would say to their kids, you know what, little Tommy, I didn't play in a grand final, but the year Collingwood won that premiership, I played 12 games in that season. So I didn't play on the day, but I helped that year to so they got to that day. And there would be players that would actually cherish that.
This is from Peter Nara, your discussion about who should a member of a playing group receive a premiership medal or not? Contribution to the effort. I'm certain Taylor Adams had more effort off the field than Billy Frampton did on the field. Played 91% of the game, had 2 possessions, 3 metres gained. Worst effort by a player in any grand final in recorded history. A bit harsh on.
Yeah, that's a bit harsh. But it does bring up the point that, yes, now Taylor Adams comes across to me as a guy that probably wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
People might say, oh, no, I don't want it. I wasn't a part of it. In saying that, he did contribute more to that premiership than Frampton. Well, he did.
Yes, overall, yes.
Yeah.
John Shield, great show again, Wayne. I think it's the first time in my life I've seen a forward Billy Frampton play as a backman on a backman. If it was planned, then Craig McRae is a genius. Then Baby Lemonade, Frampton beat Cam Mooney in 99 for possessions in a grand final, Duck. Ha ha.
Yeah.
Does Cam Mooney go to your reunions?
It's next year.
And will he?
Well, he'll be invited. Of course he will.
But has he gone in the past?
I can't remember the last one we had for 99. Actually, yes, I do. I do remember it now. was in Fitzroy. Was he there? Can't remember.
Okay.
Can't remember. But I would assume he'll be there. He was a part of the team.
Yeah.
He played, remember, he was a guy that played during the year as well.
Yes.
He didn't just come in for the grand
Different
final.
time where he got barely any game time in the grand final.
Exactly right. So that's a big contributor. It wasn't like he was out on the ground.
This is from Kale. Best grand finals so far this century in order. So Kale's put them in order. So 2009, was that St Kilda Geelong 09? Yep. 2002, Brisbane Collingwood. 2005, Sydney West Coast.
Yeah, I think people get confused with close grand final being a good grand final. They were hard fought.
2018, Collingwood. That was West Coast win over Collingwood. That was a pretty good game of footy.
Great
that
game
was.
of footy.
And then he's got at number 5, 2023. So does 2023 sit behind all of those grand finals, you reckon?
I don't. Once again, rating something that...
Isn't that our whole business?
Yes. Well, no, not really. No, it's not mine. It was a great grand final. I really, really enjoyed. It's one of the best in the last few years that I've seen. I think 2018 was an absolute ripper as well, Collingwood and West Coast. That was a beauty. And given how close it was in the moments late in that game, those two stand out in the last 5 years.
This is from Anthony. Question for Duck. Did he ever entertain a senior coaching pathway at the AFL level? And if not, why?
I did. I worked at Collingwood, actually, under Mick Malthouse. When
in a full-time role or part-time role? What was
part-time? Was 10 hours a week. 10 hours
so you just go to training, would you? Is that what you do?
10 hours a week I was required to be there. Couldn't make it quite 10 hours. And I remember... Dids and Licker, Paul LaCuria and Taz and all these guys, and Travis Cloak was the centre half forward at the time. And I remember rolling up there and I had a V8 roll up, and they'd hear me come in. I'd be the first one at training, go in there, pump a few weights with the boys, go out and have a kick, and then they'd hear the calves speeding off. So they gave me a desk.
You just do your bench press, and
they gave me a desk and a computer.
Yeah.
The computer never got turned on.
I couldn't imagine it. So you know what coding is. You know the way they code games now.
I do, yeah. Well, I'm a more hands-on man. I did. And I remember I went to, they made the prelim that year. I think Collingwood got beaten the prelim. Travis Cloak won the BNF, the only BNF he won when I was there as the forwards coach.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
And I remember I went in and saw Eddie and Mick at the end of the year because there was an option to go for another year. And I went in and I said, "Oh, look, I'm just not finding the time." They said, "Yeah, no, we mutually agreed." So it was a mutual agreement that
it run its course.
Yep.
Just finally, this is from Rogan. Now, you may or may not remember this.
Not Josh.
No. No.
Joe.
Different spelling. There was something last week you brought up.
Joe.
And I didn't quite understand what you're talking about, and he's clarified it. I'm Mike Lowry. It was from Bad Boys.
Bad Boys, yes.
It's from Bad Boys. So thanks for that clarification. And after he said
Mike
that,
Lowry.
So it was Will Smith.
Yes.
So thanks for that clarification. As always, happy for you to pull us up on anything that we might stuff, because sometimes we fly by the seat of our pants a little bit.
Well, that's all we're doing here.
Duck, great to see you again. We've got some special episodes coming up, so keep an ear out for them. We're going to delve into some off-season stuff, some trade stuff, and maybe some players' trips as well. So look forward to those, and I'll catch you again soon.
You can either take the red pill, you'll wake up, everything was a dream, or you can take the black pill, you can get torched.
Well, I suppose getting torched won't hurt that much. I don't feel anything.
Wait for it.
Oh, wait. I just got a new client.
Get torched! Get torched! Get torched!